question that I had for that was about the concept of moral technology, which are technologies that are created and designed in harmony with nature and for the benefit of humankind. So, are there any moral technologies existing today? And I know some people have brought up the 5G, and Mike, you made a really good point that I have also been thinking about is, can we use these immoral technologies and um, switch it around and rise above these frequencies, so to speak, um, and use it for our benefit? And are there other technologies that you guys see today that are quote unquote moral?
Perhaps I could just add something about this phrase moral technology, and I'll try and tie in a few bits into Keeley and the comments that someone made about Keeley. This is really how Susan and I began working together, was this concept of moral technology. And I had, previous to meeting Susan, I'd been reading the work of Rudolph Steiner, and he described moral technology. What does that mean? And he said that John Worrell Keeley was an example of someone who had discovered a moral force, and it would be a force that we would use in the future. And Steiner described two paths for mankind. One would be what he called a lower path, which would become electricity, and one would be a higher path, which he called moral technology. And on a personal level, I'm still trying to wrestle with what this means years after learning about it, because I'm working with free energy devices which work with electricity. But to give you an idea, Keeley was not working with electricity. He was around in the 1850s, 1860s. He was working with what he called the etheric vibrations of the human being, would bring, for example, a motor sat on a desk into motion. So there was an intrinsic connection between the human being and what was in front of the creation of the human being in front. There was an intrinsic connection on the etheric level, however we might define etheric level. Perhaps we might say they're more refined layers of reality. So I was always fascinated by that. I thought, what does that even look like? Because we're so driven by electricity. And as Chip just said, I mean, we are saturated to the core with electricity and electric technologies. And I can't profess personally to say we know really what moral technologies look like. Keeley was doing something very unusual, and we still 160, 50 years on haven't figured out what he was doing. I like to think we will do one time. But when I began working with Susan, that was what we really bonded on, was this, what we call moral technology. And we set a foundation called the Foundation for Moral Technology. And I wonder, Susan, if I could hand over to you a little bit to describe your view of moral technology, because I think this is genuinely the most important issue there is, personally speaking.
Going in regards to moral technology, I mean, we're also, like, you can't have these, what I call really profound conversations unless you're willing to, go even further into boundaries that, typically have been, there's stop points on certain things that you talk about. So with that is, if we know that the ether is alive and it's sentient, then it changes the dynamic of what the relationship is. And that's sometimes a hard thing for people to get. But if you talk to indigenous people, this is something, that they know and revere. And, their sacred life is built with nature, the water, the air, the land, the food, the animals. So when we talk about moral technology, we're actually talking about something with that type of sentience. And there are individuals that will say they have experiences with these type of technologies. And who knows, maybe Keeley was one, maybe Tesla was one that had this type of interaction at some point or multiple points throughout their life. But our sense is that taking it to even relating it to the book with the paradigm shifts is, well, if there is such a thing, then how we show up as human beings is very related to how we can hold the ecosystem for such technology. And, people say, well, how come Tesla wasn't able to do what he did? And, it's because of those bad people that were around at the time, right? Well, so maybe there is something about the consciousness at the time and being able to up level and to see that the universe is a living system, the earth is a living system, and we are able to be part of that living system, but we have to recognize that sentience. And so it's one of the big challenges that John and I have had doing the work that we do is there's this sense of man and machine. And what we've tried to do is turn it around to say, there's a living being, man, woman, ether, earth, and that's first. What gets developed out of that is the offput of, or the offshoot of that consciousness.
I'm just really fascinated with, like, how do we measure the good technology? What are the, do we hold it next to ourselves and see how it feels, or are we looking at it in terms of how it affects the water molecules in our body? Do we have instruments that can be developed to see that?
I think in chapter 4, Susan talks a little bit about that first technology that they went to investigate together and how the dogs and the cats were attracted.
Right.
Maybe Susan, you can speak a little bit more about that.
The life-giving, if it's like the certain people that you interact with, and then you feel, there's positive charge, and sometimes you're feeling like, oh man, I don't feel so well, or this, it feels like something just got taken away from me, right? So that we have our barometer, as we are these electromagnetic beings. And what was really interesting, and I'll try to tell it quickly, because again, I know we've got so much to cover, but this device was in the process of about to be powered up. And so there was a dog that was outside. It was a very big, shaggy, like blondish orange dog. And it was really, really cute. I probably have some pictures on my phone because I took pictures. I should be taking pictures of the device, but I was taking pictures of the animals just because they were just, they just caught my attention. So this big, shaggy dog nestles up into probably, I don't know, John, size-wise, like spacing-wise, how close it was, but it was pretty close to what they were initially using to power this thing up, and it was loud. It was really loud, and normally animals will scatter when they hear a loud noise. Well, both this dog and this cat sat with each other. Again, how often do you see dogs and cats sit with each other? And these were strays that were connected to this lab/building. It wasn't like people lived there. And so that was even interesting. But if a dog could smile, this dog was smiling. And this cat snuggled up to the dog as this thing turned on. And normally animals would go scatter. They didn't. They just cuddled up to this area, and then when it was shut off, they left. And then the immediate image I got was equivalent to when dogs drink out of the toilet or they drink out of a stream, like this running water, that the energy was different. There was a quality to the energy that was different. Now, I don't have a measuring device that was measuring, and I don't think, John, you were measuring, what was going on in the environment at the time. But, from a face validity standpoint, I thought that was interesting. I have asthma, and the gentlemen were smoking there, and normally that bothers me. And it was bothering me in the beginning, but I will say during the time before and after, I noticed that it wasn't impacting my breathing at the time. So again, face validity, I'm one person. John was there. He did witness the animals. Oh, is that it? Is that the dog?
Nice.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's sorry.
It looks like it's smiling.
I told you. Jean,
We could have put that in the book.
Exactly. But look at the
And
cat.
the cat was there with their kittens as well.
With the kittens. Oh, it was, it was better. It was better than what I remembered.